The summer is finally here, which means I get to talk about the best, the worst, and sometimes even the most surprising films that surprised me this summer. This summer was it was good. There were some certain films that really blew me away and other films that really disappointed me, but that's what this list is going to be about. It's going to be fun to talk about it. Make sure, guys, to comment down below and let me know your favorite films of the summer, what some of your worst ones was, what disappointed you, and of course, what also surprised you. And this video would not be without my Patreon supporters, so make sure to go check them out. Shout out to all of them. I do have some links down below as well for all the ones that are on YouTube who do support me as well. And this is actually suggestions from Justin Watches Movies, so thank you, Justin, for giving me this idea. Let's get started. How I do the summer 2019 is I do not include April, so Avengers Endgame will not be in here. If it was, trust me, it'd be at the very top of my list. But talking about the summer, I go from May to the first week of August, which means it would end right with Hobbs and Shaw. So that means we're going to talk about the worst first, because let's get the worst out of the way. Not all these films were total trash. Some of them were just disappointing, or just in general, not the films that I wanted them to be when I saw them from the trailers or how they marketed them. Now, and there's also no particular order when it comes to me kind of just talking about these films. It's just a couple films that I do want to mention. And talking about the worst / disappointing is mostly talking about The Secret Life of Pets, which is the one film that I didn't care about. I saw it this summer and I totally forgot about it. Now, the first one, I'm not a big fan of. I think the second one's a little bit of an improvement on it, but when it comes down to the story structure, it's missing out on a lot of things within it. That first Secret Life of Pets really worked because it had that group of pets together interacting. That's the only part of that whole story that worked. And then the second one, they split them all up together in different short films that kind of tie together by the end, but that's not what made the first one good or likable. There is entertainment value in here, but this film is not for me, and it's kind of hard trashing animated films because this one in particular is not for me. It is for younger kids, but when I'm an adult trying to watch this and I don't have a kid, it should still entertain me. There are other animated films this summer and just in general this year that have entertained me that, were for adults and kids. Even moving forward, talking about Men in Black as well, that was a major disappointment for me as well. I was actually really looking forward to it. The second they announced, you got Chris Hemsworth, Tessa Thompson, Kumail Nanjiani, Liam Neeson, and even F. Gary Gray directing it. That is a all-star crew right there, working on a reimagining of the Men in Black franchise. And the first three for me, not everyone loves them. I like them. I have fun with them. Some of them are guilty pleasure. Some of them are just fun. But the thing with this new one is it just comes down to a poor script and the issues with the story structure within it. Now, some of the comedy does hit, especially with Pawnee, who is portrayed by Kumail Nanjiani. He is easily the best part of the whole entire film, but he's not in it too much. And when you also look at Tessa Thompson and Chris Hemsworth, who have great chemistry, and we know they're great together because of Thor Ragnarok, and I cannot wait to see what they do in Thor Love and Thunder. But with those actors and actresses on screen, you expect a little bit more, and even though their dynamic is still strong in here, it's the script that doesn't pair them perfectly together. I like Tessa Thompson in here. I think she's probably the most likable out of all these human characters, but when it comes down to the end, it's pretty predictable. The action's not really the best, and in general, when it comes down to a Men in Black summer blockbuster film, I kind of just went out going, Moving on, even talking about another film that truly disappointed me this year was The Lion King. Now, I was really looking forward to this. If you would have told me when they had announced this that this would be one of my least favorite Disney live action films, I would have been calling you crazy, but sadly it is. It loses all the personality of what the original animated film did have, and I wish it would have stuck to that. There could have been a way that you could have done this. Jungle Book did it magnificently, but Lion King just loses that personality and soul that the original carried. While the visual effects, there's nothing to take away from them. They are excellent. They are out of this world. They are incredible. It's truly just a meh film that takes away from a lot of the personality. And even talking about meh films, Annabelle Comes Home was another one that truly disappointed me this year, because Annabelle creation really blew it out of the park. It's one of my favorite in this Conjuring universe. I was so for it. But when it comes down to this concept, while there are fun elements to it, there is a non-existent story inside this film that really carries and is just built on jump scares. Whether it's the girl walks from this room, runs into demon, walks through this room, runs into demon. Oh, jump scare, jumps right out in front of you. I hate films that do that, and Annabelle Creation, while actually had a story, while also kind of genuinely around jump scares, was still more of a fun time and actually added stuff to the Conjuring universe. This film truly did nothing for me, and I truly found myself disappointed because when they marketed this as Annabelle Comes Home, but mostly as Nightmare at the Museum, I was all for it, and it just, in the end of the day, found myself being a little bit bored. And talking about the most disappointing, but mostly just the worst film of this summer that I just don't care about, and that is The Hustle. The Hustle is horrendous. It's a movie that, while has two good actors in it, and just in general, their chemistry might work off one another, it's a movie that I just will never care to rewatch. The humor doesn't always land. I seem to be in the minority on this one because it seemed like a lot of people laughed in my theater, and I was one of the only ones that was like, yeah! That's not for me. Some other ones that kind of disappoint me as well, just to leave some honorable mentions: Dark Phoenix, Brightburn, and even Yesterday. Before we get any further into this video, make sure to slap that like, subscribe button, where you guys get tons of early movie reviews and geeky content over here on a daily basis. If you guys want to see films early, go check out Sandwich on Films. As we move forward, let's talk about the best of this summer, which the number one for me was Toy Story 4. I love the Toy Story franchise, and Toy Story 4 was my most anticipated film of this year heading in, and it blew it out of the water. I was very skeptical. I was very nervous about this film. The trailers weren't the best, even though I was still crying of joy just because I love Toy Story, and I walked out of this film just blown away, utterly, with so much emotion wrapped through me, so much laughs, and I'm probably going to be the minority on that. A lot of people don't, but it's my second favorite Toy Story. I've seen it 6 times, and I cannot wait to get it on Blu-ray so I can just keep watching it at home. I love this movie, and I just love every single aspect about it and what they did with Woody's character. And also, talking about summer movies, let's talk about Spider-Man Far From Home. I loved this Spider-Man film. It was actually quite surprising because I expected to really like it, and I was a little bit scared and nervous, though, because I did like Homecoming a lot. But the thing about this is I wanted to go back to that gritty Spider-Man that we kind of got was from Sam Raimi, but within some of the action sequences and within Far From Home, we did get that, and Mysterio, Jake Gyllenhaal nailed it. And personally, this is one of my favorite Spider-Man films, if not my favorite at right now. It is probably my favorite, like, just actually talking about it and just getting more excited about it. I do understand that there are issues with this film, but for me, it was one of my favorite MCU films, and in general, Far From Home is one of those movies that truly just blew me away because of what they did with Mysterio, because Mysterio's my favorite comic book villain, and they just did him so right. And also, talking about movies this summer that really blew my mind out of the water was a recent one called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's Quentin Tarantino's 9th film, and a movie that I'm a big fan of Tarantino. Almost every single one of his movies I like, and I went into this movie with a little bit hesitation, but also very excited about it, just because when you go into a Tarantino film, it's a big event. Then you add in DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, and Margot Robbie are going to be a part of it. Damn, count me on board. That's even a bigger event. But when it goes into a Tarantino film, you never know what you're going to get out of it. And out of this, I might not have gotten what I thought I was going to get from originally when the concept was announced, but I loved what I got. It's a story about friendship, and Brad Pitt and DiCaprio are truly the all-stars of the whole entire film. They blew it out of the water. I loved every aspect about it. And can we talk about how Tarantino, I know he's only talking about doing one more film, he's got to do a horror film, because every single thing they do with the Manson in this film, the tension, the build-up to all those moments, especially on Spawn Farm, was incredibly done, and that was just the tip of the iceberg, so I'm curious to see what he could do with a full-fledged horror movie. Talking about horror, let's talk about Midsommar, the breakup film of the year. Now, some people are calling it a little bit overrated, but I think that's just because people don't get what this film was about. It is not a horror movie. It is a psychological folk tale, and I love that. It's about toxic relationships and everything that's about it, and I think if you've been in a relationship, maybe you can actually relate a little bit harder to it. Fuck you, bitch! God, I'm so sorry. Just forgive me. This is not the best date film. In fact, this is the movie that you take maybe your ex-girlfriend to and you say, hey, see? That could have been us. It is a messed up story in itself, and the way that they tell this folktale, the way that they build up this world was very unique, and I truly was fascinated from Midsommar. Talking about fascination, Rocketman really blew it out of the water as well for me. This is a movie that just Taron Egerton, if the Oscars were tomorrow, this would be a very close running between him and DiCaprio. This guy blew it out of the water as Elton John. Formulating this movie into a more of a musical, but an elevated musical biopic was wonderful. And every single one of the musical scenes, everything that Taron Egerton did, everything that Dexter Fletcher did inside Rocketman was one of the strongest things you could do. And plus, Richard Madden was just a great antagonist, kind of protagonist in this film as well. There's some great elements to Rocketman, and it truly is. I hope it does get the Oscar love towards the end of the season. Talking about some of my honorable mentions, of course, John Wick Chapter 3 has to be in there. That's just a kick-ass time. Maybe a little bit too long, but still a lot of fun. Detective Pikachu I just picked up today actually on Steelbook, and it looks wonderful. It's a beautiful film. film. It feels like Roger Rabbit mixed with Blade Runner, added in with some Pokemon, and I'm all for it. Hopefully we do get a sequel. And of course, I gotta mention Godzilla King of the Monsters, a movie that I was just on the edge of my seat for every single action sequence, and I'm so excited for Kong versus Godzilla. We come to my favorite part of this list though, and that is the surprises of the summer. What surprised me the most in the summer? And my number one surprise was The Farewell. I did not expect for that Sundance buzz to really carry over, but this is one of my favorite films of the year. It's a film that will make you cry. It's a film that make you laugh, but it's a movie that puts you culturally into the Chinese American and in general the Chinese culture and understanding where they're coming from, because the story revolves around a family not telling their grandmother that she's dying. How do you do that? The film builds it up perfectly for us understanding why this culture does it, but it also puts you perfectly placed inside this family where you feel like you're truly there with them. Speaking of another surprising movie for me, is Always Be My Maybe. This is a Netflix movie that a lot of people were talking about it. Now, there's an excellent cameo in here, which if you had not seen it, I'm not going to spoil the cameo, but it's perfect. But it's a rom-com, and I'm a sucker for rom-coms, in fact, but it's this movie in particular that really sucked me in and really surprised me, because I was watching it on a flight, and I just fell in love. I found myself getting a little bit teary-eyed at some moments and feeling relatable to certain elements, but it is a hilarious romp ride with a lot of romantic elements to it that I just truly liked. Speaking of rom-coms, holy shit, one of my favorite movies of this year is Longshot. This stars Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron. I love this movie. I was actually at the premiere at South by Southwest. It came out this summer. I saw it 3 times, and I've already watched it once at home since it came out on Blu-ray. This is one of my favorite films of the year. I love it to death. I don't know what it is about this movie, but I just feel so relatable. I am Seth Rogen's character. The thing about this thing, though, is even though I feel like I'm Seth Rogen's character, the thing about Charlize Theron's character in here is the way that they play them off, the way that they take their time building up the relationship, that it doesn't seem like a long shot to some viewers. It feels like the perfect match made in heaven that you want them to end up together. Speaking of other romances, this is the year of romances. Aladdin. Holy crap. Who knew I would enjoy it? I never expected myself to enjoy Aladdin. I saw that trailer and went, oof, does not look good. But I walked out thinking, wow, that was a magical time. I cannot wait to watch that again. And I had a blast with it. Aladdin's one of my favorite Disney animated films. I thought this live action remake actually did it wonders, and Guy Ritchie did it great. There's a couple cons here and there, but truly from what I wanted in this live action remake, I walked out and I got every single perfect part about it. Also talking about one of the most underrated films, and not kind of surprising, but kind of not. I knew I was going to like, but I didn't expect to love it this much, was Booksmart. This is one of the best films of this year. Olivia Wilde directed the hell out of this movie. You guys probably didn't see it. Go check it out. It's coming out on VOD soon. Mark it down. It is super bad for girls, but also in general, I think it's the dazed and confused of our generation. This is a packed full of laughter and emotion and so much relatability to it that you guys will end up falling in love with it. And just speaking about other honorable mentions, Crawl, the alligator movie, the crocodile movie, who knew I would actually really like that movie? And even talking about Late Night, that was a good surprise. Child's Play, I expected to hate, kind of actually really oddly enjoyed it in a guilty pleasure way. Stuber was another nice surprise, and of course I want to talk about Hobbs and Shaw. This was surprising because I actually expected to like it more. I still liked it, but I expected to like it more than I thought I was going to. I expected this actually to jump pretty high on my list. It didn't jump too high, but it is still a fun movie, and I had to put that down in my surprises. Overall, for summer 2019, this was a nice summer. There were a lot of surprises in there, but also a lot of fun aspects too. While the summer didn't kick it off with the best blockbusters ever, there were a lot of smaller films that really won over my heart, and in that case in general, since I'm a big indie fanatic and I loved smaller films like The Farewell, or even when you look at Booksmart, and maybe even Longshot I would include in there. Those are the films that truly won me over, plus you count in Toy Story 4 and Spider-Man Far From Home. While there were some disappointments like Men in Black and The Lion King, it's not like my major ones were the ones that I was disappointed by. So with that said, summer 2019, I'm going to have to give you a B. I think you were a solid summer, and hopefully next summer will be even better since we are getting films like Nolan's Tenet, and I cannot wait to see that movie. Guys, of course, make sure to leave me down below your comments. What are some of your favorite films? What are some of your worst? What are some of your most surprising? Let's talk about it down below. And of course, guys, hit that like and subscribe button if you guys are enjoying this. Check out all my Patreon shoutouts, all to them. They are great as well. Thank you guys so much for supporting me on the Patreon. Check out Sandwich on Films as well to see films early. And make sure, guys, I'll catch you guys later. So, until next time, stay classy.